Welcome to another episode of the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. Have you ever wondered what is going on with DEI? Why are they saying that DEI is illegal and what are we going to do about it? Well, our next guest, Stacey Gordon, is going to tell you all about it. Welcome to another episode of the Ask Mrs. HR podcast. I am so glad to have you back. And I am so glad to have in the studio today, Stacey Gordon. She is not only my friend, but she is a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. And as you know, I got to read her bio because it's so long. So to unpack everything diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is DEI, she is going to tell us about her experience as a global authority on inclusive workplace strategy. She is a global talent advisor, a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and founder of Rework, which is a consulting firm that transforms how companies recruit, hire, and lead with inclusion at the core. Stacey has worked with powerhouse brands like American Express, Kia Motors, GE, HP, Roku, and even the Obama Foundation. I remember when she called me to tell me, I was so excited she was working with the Obama Foundation. So she guides them through leadership development, culture shifts, and strategic DEI change. She is the author of the best-selling book, Unbiased, Addressing Unconscious Bias at Work, which debuted at #1 on Amazon's hot new release list. Her LinkedIn Learning, which you can access now, her course on unconscious bias became the #1 most watched course of 2021 with millions of views across the globe. So Stacey's insights have been featured on the Harvard Business Review, the Society of Human Resource Management, Fast Company, NPR, BBC, and more and more. She is widely recognized, and she is here on the show today. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you.
Been busy since we last started our little podcast with our little app. A little conference room.
Yes. That, you know what? In our little box.
In our little box, our little app, our little conference room. I don't even think we're using our little laptop.
Right. Trying to connect to three of us.
And you're in your little part-time job. You've come a long way from being small.
It's been a long way coming, right? I mean, and I think we could say the same as it relates to the industry that we're in.
Yes.
Change happens, things happen, and sometimes you expect to see progress, and sometimes you look around and you feel like you're right back at square one.
Well, I could tell you looking from the outside in, you are not back at square one. You are doing some really big, amazing things. And now the challenge is for me to try to capture it all in like 20 minutes or a half an hour. So what's the most exciting thing about what you get to work on today? Like if we look back, we've known each other almost probably close to 10 years, at least.
More than.
Probably more. I know.
Definitely more than.
More than 10 years.
Yes.
A decade.
At least a decade, yes.
So in this decade that has passed, like what's the most exciting thing you get to do that you think is fun and exciting?
I think for me, the most exciting thing is going into workplaces and helping, like knowing that I'm making positive change, right, for people that work there. Yeah. I can't tell you the number of people, I shouldn't say this, but I've started to almost make it a game. And I go into a company and I'm like, okay, let me see if I can pick out who is going to come up to me afterwards.
Yes.
And have something to say. And I look around and I go, did I get the right person? A lot of times I don't, right? But but it's just that fact that, people are going to come up and usually one of two things. This has been really helpful. I'm so glad that you came in and we are having this discussion that we need to have. Or, Stacey, so do you think I should quit my job? Because this is not the place for me.
Yeah. I totally have experienced that too. Just talking to employees when you come from the outside and they see a glimmer of hope, it's almost like, I always think of it, that movie Toy Story, when the little alien toys, they like hide it in the corner and then all of a sudden they come out have you come to free us? Have you come to help us? And that's exactly what I think about every time when I go into a workplace. They're like all hiding and they'll say nothing in the presentation, but as soon as it's over, they catch you at the
Right.
corner of the room or the coffee machine.
Right. And it
that's
happens.
kind of, yeah.
Well, I think it happens because what we're doing is sparking the awareness that things can be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that too often workplaces have gotten away with, gaslighting people and telling them that this is the best you can do. This is all it's going to be. And we come in and say, actually, just saying, it could be different. It could be better. And I think that employers should welcome that. They should want it because you want a holistic, symbiotic relationship in the workplace. You don't want an antagonistic, confrontational workplace. Your employers, the employer, the company, right, and the leaders and the employees should not be having an adversarial relationship. It should be that we're working together. And if you're in a situation where it feels adversarial, then something needs to change.
Well said. So let me rewind it a little because I don't think I read your bio, but what exactly do you do? How do you describe what you do?
Oh, it's kind of funny because I do a couple different things. And I realize that it gets confusing because I really try to work with employers. But my mindset and the thing that I want to do is help employees, right? So I want to make the workplace better for the employees. I want to make the workplace better for everyone who are going to be working in that space. But in order for that to happen, the employer has to change.
Right.
So that's why there is well, who do you work with? Do you work with candidates or do you work with employers? And it's well, yeah, I'm working with the company, working with the company leadership for the idea of making those changes. So how do I do that? It's in a couple of different ways. Sometimes it is just literally coming into an organization and sparking the idea that, yeah, stuff does have to change, right? Sometimes you don't need me to lead the change. You just need me to help recognize that change needs to happen. Right.
Yeah, I think both of us have at some point or even today called ourselves disruptors. And I think in both of our work, we disrupt workplaces. I think you're sometimes more vocal than I am with disrupting, but I am a proud disruptor and I am proud to know you as a disruptor. What sparked the creation of Rework Work?
Well, and before I answer that, I would just say, I think when we think about disruption, it has a negative connotation. And I don't think that what we do is negative, right? If you're disrupting a process that is harmful to people, that's actually a positive thing. Yeah. You want it to stop. So, I don't want people to go away from this thinking that disruption is negative because it's not. It is. It depends, right, on what it is that you're trying to work within. So I just like to make that point because I think people sometimes hear that, oh, Stacey's coming into the organization. And it's oh, we must have been doing something bad. We must have been sued or there must have been some sort of issue. And that's not always the case. It's just your employer actually wants the workplace to be better.
Right.
They know we can do better. And so this is an opportunity for us to upskill your workplace.
Yeah. Well, this may still sound scary, but I do believe sometimes you just have to burn things down. You got to burn it down for it to grow stronger. And I have had visions, and you don't have to agree, but I've had visions of going into workplaces, just burning it. We need to just get rid of everything here that you're doing. It just needs to a reboot. And so that's good. Yeah. Because a lot of times, and especially in human resources, I just see a lot of copy paste. They're using the old policies and handbooks from, Ford Motor Company, 1950. Right. Where'd you get this handbook?
You see the copyright date on that?
No, it's from 1950 employee policies, whatever. But anyhow, so back to you. Oh, you were going to answer. What sparked Rework Work?
So what sparked Rework Work, and it's funny because you said burning things down, right?
Burn it.
And I think a lot of times, too, people hear my company name, Rework Work, and they assume that. They assume that it means I'm going to come in and get rid of everything. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it actually means we're going to do an audit, and we're going to look at what's working, and we're going to keep that, because if it's working, then good. But the things that aren't working, we're going to improve, right? So the Rework Work came about because of exactly that. I was just really frustrated one day because my roots are in talent acquisition. So I was working as a recruiter, And I was talking to a couple of the folks that was working with me at the time, and I just said, this is ridiculous. We need to change. We need to rework how we hire and how we recruit and how we advance and all the policies. I was like, we just need to rework work. And I was like, you know what? That's a great name for my company. Because at the time it was called the Gordon Group, which I know was very innovative, right?
I like that
very
name
creative.
too.
But so 2016, switched the company name to Rework Work, and then focused on like how do we look at the processes that are happening in workplaces. And I think we overcomplicate so much of the workplace. So many of the things that we talk about are simple fixes, and people look at you like you've got two heads. And it's like, I swear, it's I jokingly said I should start a podcast and call it "It's Not Rocket Science."
Oh,
because the amount of times I feel like I have to say it is not rocket science. I swear does not have to be difficult. You don't need $1 million policy or a process. You don't need a whole initiative. We just need you to stop doing this one thing.
Yeah. Or start doing one thing.
Right.
So with me, I have the same advice all the time, and it's talk to each other. I'm like, did you tell the person? Did you have a conversation? And so there's been so many opportunities. It's just sit down, talk to the person. So, but that's one of my favorite pieces of advice that is like, oh, I guess I didn't talk to my employee. Like, when's the last time you talked to your employee? Well, during the holiday party, we sat down together. It's like, I just every time, every time. So, across your work with companies like American Express, HP, and the Obama Foundation, what consistent challenges, other than what we just talked about, do you see in building truly inclusive workplaces and cultures?
The challenge is just people being stuck on stupid. They are stuck on this is the way we've always done it. This is how it needs to be. And it's just like I said, simple. Like just this idea that you can change it. I swear you can. And, I know you're talking about burning stuff all the way down. But it doesn't even have to be like that. It really doesn't. Sometimes it's a really simple change or a small fix. I can't tell you the number of times I've sat with leaders in a conference room and said, well, could you just change this one thing? And I had a CEO say to me, well, I can't make that change. I said, well, why not? Right? I was like, aren't you the CEO?
Right.
I was like, if you can't make the change, then who can?
Right.
I think your name is on the door, right? Literally, like, it's within your power to do it. But we get so caught up in this is what it must look like, this little robotic way of moving through things that when you do say, yeah, let's change it, that is hard for people to do. So that's a lot of the conversations I'm having is just around embracing change, understanding that change can happen, and understanding that each individual actually has a responsibility and the ability to make that change. Because I think a lot of times people feel like they are handcuffed and they can't. And it's like, no, actually, you really can.
So here's a personal and professional question. It's not, just actually came to me because I feel like we would be doing our audience a disservice if we don't talk about it. And I know you have the guts to address it. Some people are scared, but you ain't scared. You ain't scared. No, you're not scared. So with our new, Trump America, Trump is the president. Is that a fact? Is our president named Trump?
Yes.
Okay. And under this new president, I'm just trying to say facts, no emotion. Look, I have no emotion on my face. I'm just fact. President Trump is the president of the current United States. And has 3 executive orders. All 3 of them in some way affect diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the current president of the United States has stated that DEI is illegal, some forms of DEI. So, right, those facts, no emotion. So, how are you dealing with this? How are you dealing with this going into organizations and people are looking at us like you specifically, because I deal with human resources kind of easy because the laws that I support are still in existence. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act is not rolled back yet. And, they're still there. So I'm still protecting people under that. How are you having conversations about DEI with the leader of the so-called free world is saying that it's illegal?
It's not illegal, right? I mean,
Right.
it just isn't.
Yeah.
Just because you state something doesn't actually make it so.
Right.
So you can have a temper tantrum and you can write stuff and you can tell people that this is illegal. But then if in order for it to be illegal, we have to look at the law.
Right.
Right? The law that's on the books, as you said, Title VII, still there. All the policies still there. None of those have changed. So anything that we're doing that is related to diversity, equity, inclusion, I think the problem that we have is that most people don't know what diversity, equity, inclusion is.
Yeah.
And so anything they don't understand, they're just like, oh, it must be DEI.
Yeah.
So there first needs to be an understanding of what is it. And even before you can get to an understanding of what it is, honestly, I think we need to get to a question of, do I care? Because if you don't care, don't talk to me. We don't need to have a conversation. This is a complete waste of your time and mine, right? This is a complete waste.
It's not a priority for you.
Right. Now, if you do care, then we can have the conversation. So I think we first have to start with, do you care? And if you do care, why?
Right.
Right. Why do you care? What does it actually have to do in your workplace? Because if you care because your competitor maybe did something. So if we even think prior to all of the DEI becoming illegal, what was happening, I think, with a lot of DEI policies is a company would say, we need to do XYZ thing.
Right.
Because our competitors are doing this thing. That's not a reason to do it. Because you don't know what really how that's going to affect your company. As you were saying earlier, have you talked to the people? Do they actually have this problem? Is there an issue that you need to resolve? In what ways do you need to do it? So everything that we've always done, auditing, how people are being treated in the workplace still needs to be fair. Right?
Fair means equitable.
Right. But we're not allowed to say equitable. So the workplace still needs to be fair, right? The workplace still has to hire people within.
Almost made my eye twitch. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It still has to be, we still have to hire people with anti-discrimination laws in place. Those laws still exist.
Okay.
So now the fact that you don't want to actually adhere to them, now, this is what we talk about a lot of times, right? When we have policy and we have practice. So what we have been told basically by our illustrious president is that if you want to ignore some of the legalities in the workplace, you can. That's literally what he is saying by saying that DEI is illegal and also by taking away some of the protection. So one of the things that I saw recently was just, made my blood boil, is the fact that if you look at Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, after they were murdered, right, there were databases that were put in place to be able to track rogue police officers and to be able to put protections in place so that we could make sure that those police officers, if they're leaving one area and going to someplace else, right, we can be able to track that, but also, things that are happening in the police force as a whole, being able to see, like, are there patterns of abuse that are happening, right? And that has just been, they've just said, let me just delete that database because we don't care anymore. So basically, if you're deleting the database that is tracking people who are harming citizens of the counties that they are sworn to protect and serve, right?
Right.
That is an actual sign. You are telling people that you don't care about what these people do and that it is okay. You are literally co-signing the abuse that is going to then occur, because it's not that it stopped occurring. It was occurring. We were just starting to track it. And now you're just saying, oh, no, let's not even track it.
Right. Wow. I agree with you 100%. And it's this conversation, my journey from being a chief diversity officer is what made me want to get a degree in public policy. And it was the week that President number 47 was put into office was the week that I was terminated from a job. And so it is what made me say, how did this happen? What policies allowed this to happen? Like, and what policies can we use and laws can we use to stop this from happening again. And then I don't know 8 years later it happened again. And so here we are again. And again, I'm having conversations with people like they still don't know what's going on in their community. They still don't like what you just described about this policy to now delete databases. I can guarantee you, y'all never heard of that. So y'all need to pay attention. It's like, that's like the cry is pay attention. It's more than just diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's also you are not paying attention.
Right.
And how are you protecting your children?
I just think of you say that, and I don't remember which Spike Lee movie it was, but what was it? There was a point where he's like,
wake up.
Yes.
It was
wasn't Do the Right Thing, was it?
It was Do the Right Thing. He was the pizza play. Yeah. He's like, wake up. Yeah.
I feel like that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, that's exactly where we are.
Know?
And you know what? I talk about this a lot with Project 2025, that Heritage Foundation, and that whole document. That's all they talk about is stay asleep. It's like, do not wake up. They're saying we are against the woke culture, wokeism, woke, anything woke. They're telling you in the document, stay asleep.
What's funny to me, though, is the word woke. Yeah. I don't know anybody who would prefer to be ignorant, because the opposite of woke is ignorant. If you are woke, you are awake and you are paying attention. Mm-hmm. If you are not woke, you sleep. You are ignorant.
Or you just sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Or you completely, okay, you could be ignorant. Well, you definitely sleep. And most likely if you sleep, you're blissfully ignorant. Yes, because you don't know what the heck is going on. And I talk about this a lot with, just friends and community. I think sometimes as people, and especially Black people, we just don't want to know what's going on. Like, oh, I'm tired. That's too much. I can't digest this information. Well, I just want to, go get my hair and nails done and relax and go to the spa. But, there's a price to pay. Actually, that's a chapter in my book, The Diversity Dilemma. But there's a price to pay, like, for freedom. There's a price. It's so simple to me. It's a price you pay for freedom. Freedom ain't free.
Well, I will say this, because I am one of those people who you have probably heard me say, I just can't, right? But I think that there's a difference, right, between the I just can't and I just want to be blissfully ignorant and I want to go get my hair and nails done and not worry about it, and the I just can't, because I just can't take in any more of this because I've been dealing with this over and over and over again and nothing has changed. And so sitting and taking in the BS and the gaslighting, and they literally are playing in our face right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to have to subject myself to that. And so I think there is a difference there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we do have to be informed. And I mean, yes, it's like even, and I hate to go here because this is so political, but when you think about what's happening in Gaza right now, right? Mm-hmm. So I have friends who are hardcore Jewish who were just like, this is terrible. And all they ever talk about is Hamas and how everything's bad, right? And then I have friends on the other side who are absolutely like free Palestine, right? And I feel like an outsider to the conversation. And so I'm looking at both sides and I recognize that there is so much misinformation that is out there about what is actually happening that people don't even really know. Like some of the people who are riled up about things are actually rightfully so to be riled up because of what they've been consuming, and what they've been consuming isn't necessarily accurate, right? And so I think that the same thing is true for just everything that's going on. We have to be so careful of the AI images that are out there, the stories that are out there. I just saw a story. I'm not even going to, I don't want to spread more disinformation, but I just saw a story yesterday morning. I opened up I think I was on Facebook or LinkedIn. I can't remember which one. And I read this story and immediately I said, this can't be real. And then I thought, but wait, what if it is real? And then I was like, but how do I find out if it's real? And it's like, I'm going through this whole process. That's a lot of time and mental energy spent on trying to decipher whether or not something is factual, how it might potentially affect me, who else has been, what's the word? Who else has been impacted by this misinformation, right? And so we have a lot of that that's happening right now, which is making all of this really, really difficult for people to deal with.
One of the pluses that have happened through this, I don't know, are we even in 6 months? 6 months. It's only been 6 months of this new presidency. But one of the things, first of all, people are learning what D, E, and I stand for. Because I would say last year they probably didn't even have a clue what DEI was. And now people are at least asking, what is DEI? Was DEI legal? How does that affect me? So yay, we got a win there. Also, the voices of some of our, tried and trusted journalists like Joy Reid, and people may not feel that same way, but Don Lemon, now having their own voice, being unfiltered, being unscreened. So I'm really appreciating that. And then where am I going with this? The ability to create safe spaces, like the need to understand, like this space right here is safe. I mean, it's going to be on YouTube and podcasts, but guess what? And trust me, I get all types of hate comments, and it's actually very funny because it proves, thank you for your haters. Thank you. Make me greater. It proves that there's a lot of just hate and racism out there. I got one of my most troubling but funny hate comments was I was talking about my great-great-great-grandfather and how he was a freed slave. And they were just like, shut the F up. You don't know nothing about slavery. I thought that was so funny. I was like, but this is stuff I'm like, I just want to say, see? This is why we do the work we do, because this is like y'all out here just talking crazy.
They really
So
are.
creating safe spaces. So I know you've created some safe spaces. Tell me about that, like the well.
Yes. I appreciate you transitioning from that negative to the positive, because I could go down that rabbit hole.
I try to keep you. I try to keep you out of darkness. Come into the light. That's what they want us to stay in the dark. Come into the light.
And that is why I created The Well, right? It is a passion project for me, and it keeps me sane. Like, people have asked me, like, how are you dealing with this DEI nonsense that's going on? And I'm just like, honestly, The Well, because I'm able to take the positive things, the things I want us as a community to be able to have access to, and put it in one place. And so really what happened was, how this started up is it is a community mostly for women of color. And I say women of color because I mean not just Black women. I mean every woman who can participate in this space. And even, if you're a white woman and you're an ally, you're welcome in the space, but you better be an ally, because otherwise, we're
going to kick you out.
Yes, there, what she said. But the idea is that for a lot of us as women, the statistics show that we are the heads of the household. We are running everything in terms of having to make sure that the kids get the information that they need, that our parents are being taken care of. We're having to do all the work, right? And so we need resources, and we are running ragged. And so you're out here trying to deal with perimenopause while trying to deal with your child in high school graduation, while trying to deal with putting your parent into a home or getting them Alzheimer's medication, while trying to deal with your own health, while trying to, even for me personally, while trying to go through a divorce, while trying to deal with all these other things that are happening. Like, the amount of stress that we are dealing with is so much. And so I wanted a space where I could pour into, and that's why it's called The Well, because literally, what do you get at a well, right?
Oh, I like
water. It is the nourishment that you need. It is the life source. And it's also where back in the day, what did you do at the well? It's where the women gathered, because they were the ones that went to get the water, right?
Yes.
And that's where you exchanged information.
That's awesome.
And that was where you found out what was happening. And people would tell you, like, oh, did you try this herb? You should try this thing, right? And you would get information. So that's what we do there at the well, is exchanging information and being able to pull in. There have been so many wonderful women who have said, yeah, I'll step up and I will provide you with information. We've had a expert on menopause who's board certified. She is highly sought after. And she's like, yeah, I'll come spend some time in here and give you free information, right? And so we've been getting these women who are coming in and providing us with a lot of information that we're then able to give back. Because again, we didn't grow up, for many of us, in spaces where at the dinner table, our parents were talking about how to invest, how to use an IRA. We were just talking about the fact that you can take money out of your 401k to purchase property without a penalty. And you were like, I didn't know we could do that, right? These are the things that for some demographic of people, they've known that because they've always had those conversations. And for us, that information has been withheld from us. Yeah. So my goal is, how do we share that information? Because if I'm already doing the work and the research to get it, why am I going to then sit there and watch you struggle through and have to find your own information? I'd rather say, here, I already found it. Let me share it with you. Yeah. And then hope that you will reciprocate and do the same. So that's what's happening in our space.
I love that. And I thank you for creating the space. And I'm a member of the Well, so check that out. And I mean, just to be really simplistic for the sake of time, when I think about information and education, and that's why it's so important to me, I think about how important it was for enslaved people to have information and education taken away from them. So that tells you how important it is, because that was the first thing they did to enslaved people, was make it illegal to read, make it illegal to learn, make it illegal to know anything. They didn't even know where they were half the time, how to even get out of a situation, right? And so that's the power that we have. And that's why I just want to emphasize that. And that's the spaces you're creating, I'm trying to create, is let me show you where the information is so you could go help yourself and get some help. And, you don't have to be stuck. But this, the culture we live in now, that's the goal, to keep getting the same recycled information on the news.
Right.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm completely
let it go.
It's also just a space too, because I think a lot of times we have to compartmentalize. And so you'll go into a space for business owners. And so you get to talk about business or entrepreneurship, but you don't get to talk about being a mom. You don't get to talk about being a parent. You don't get to talk about having to deal with your parents. You don't get to talk about all these other things. You don't get to talk about dating, right? You don't get to talk about your marriage. You don't get to talk about church. So it's like you have to go to these different spaces in order to be a whole person. And I'm tired of that. I was like, you know what? I want to show up as me wherever I am. I'm tired of you telling me, no, I can't talk about this thing in this space. It's like, no, I want to talk about all the things that make me me in this space.
So one of the aha moments, thank you. One of the aha moments I've had doing this work over the years is that I have privilege. I would have never, ever described myself as a person of privilege. I'm, come from the hood, and blah, 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 the whole story, my story. But the point is, I do have privilege. I'm doing pretty good, What are some of the aha moments that really stand out for you?
I mean, so I'll give you a personal and then a professional. So there's just, I think, and I use this one a lot because I do a lot of work around privilege. I don't call it privilege because, again, people don't like to talk about that. But I'm going to make you talk about it anyway. And so what happens is, in the sessions that I do, we talk about this. I'll use the example of my privilege, which really hit home for me during the pandemic, right? So my kids at the time came home, and it was like, you have to be home from school, right? For the next 2 weeks was what they said. Remember, it was 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, we didn't miss a beat, right? Monday morning, my kids, we had laptops at home. We had a personal computer. We had a high-speed internet access. We had a color printer. We had iPads. We had cell phones. Everyone had a space and a desk to be able to sit at and do their work. Everybody did their work. It wasn't until a couple of weeks into the pandemic that they were doing a news story talking about some of these little girls who didn't have access to a computer and were sitting on the curb outside of a Burger King trying to get Wi-Fi so they could do their homework on a cell phone. And I thought, wow, I have privilege, right? And so we all have privilege, just because there's that opportunity, I think, where for us to, sometimes you realize you have privilege and sometimes you realize that, you don't. It depends on the context in the moment. Right. And so that was just personally. But I think professionally, those aha moments is you're working with leaders who, sometimes I get it. They're not necessarily all there because they want to be. They're there because they feel like they have to be. And watching the change, right? And you can literally watch the light bulb moment go off for different leaders. Yeah. And you see this person is now going to be able to go back and they're going to be so much of a better leader with their team. And that for me is fun. Also, if I'm being real, I like the fact that I get to tell people this stuff, right? It's like all these things that you can finally get to tell a supervisor.
Right.
You know, I was working with one time and we were doing this process, and I won't go into the whole story, but I basically said at the end of the session, I said, do you realize how difficult it must be to be a team member on your team? Because we had gone through some things, and he said, you know what? I never really thought about that. And I was like, yeah, it must be really hard.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he was like, huh, I probably need to make some changes to the way that I lead my team.
Yeah.
You know, and in my head, I'm like, yeah, you do. Right.
Yeah.
But it's those kinds of aha moments for people. Like that now changes the dynamic for his whole team. Right. And whether that's 2 people or 20 people or 200 people. And that's why I say for me, I'm all about how do we make workplaces better for the employees? But in order for that to happen, we got to work with the leaders.
Right. I agree. Attitude reflects leadership, period. So your book, Unbiased, and your LinkedIn Learning course have reached millions. If you had to leave every learner with just one message, what would it be?
Oh, my goodness. So I always tell people, well, it's a few things. I'm sorry, you said one, but...
You can do a few things. One main thing.
I always tell people just because something is difficult doesn't make it impossible. And so there's a lot of difficult things that we're going to have to do, but they're not impossible. And it just requires a desire to do it because we are, as humans, really smart and we will figure some stuff out once we want to, right? I think the other thing is, oh gosh, I just lost it. To lead with curiosity. I am a big proponent of leading with curiosity. Sometimes people will say stuff, they will play in your face, they will make you want to cuss them out. And this is the employee part of this is like, if you want to keep your job and you want to make it through what you're in right now, you've got to lead with curiosity rather than saying, I can't believe you said, or how dare you?
Yeah.
Ask some questions, right?
Yeah.
What would make you say that? Why would you come at me like that? What is it that you're trying to get across? What did I miss from the conversation? Like, ask some questions and then let them answer those questions, right? Just sit back and let them talk because that's going to make them have to really consider what they said to you.
I like it. I like it. So, wow, Stacey, thank you for your brilliance, your clarity, all of the things that you're doing this work. I think it's really, in all seriousness, it takes a lot of bravery and courage to come in as a Black woman coming into these spaces and challenging, disrupting, and encouraging. And it takes a lot of professional courage. And that's what, to me, a lot of times is missing in the workplace. So, but again, speaking from my privilege, I don't have a workplace anymore. When I was in the workplace at different organizations, I was very suppressed and oppressed, couldn't say certain things, had a lot of fear. So I just hope that this episode helps people to know that, you're not losing your mind. Uh, you started off with gaslighting. Yeah, you probably are being gaslit in some areas. And hopefully you can follow Stacey and learn more about the work she's doing. Join the well. And what else would you recommend our viewers do?
Yeah, I mean, we've moved everything over to Substack. So if you follow me at reworkwork.substack.com or welcome to the well.substack.com, both of those places will take you to 2 different areas, especially right now. I mean, we didn't get into the whole thing of the amount of Black women who have been laid off recently. And there's how many women are unemployed right now. So I've taken my whole career toolkit and put it into the well as something that you can use as a resource to help you with your job search. So that's another resource that is out there for folks.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I have been getting a lot of calls of people either looking for a new job because they're being treated horribly. I talked a few weeks ago, a woman, a Black woman who had to fight for their FMLA. And basically the manager said, well, let's see what the new president says first before you can take your FMLA. I'm like, so I'm sorry to bring you there. But that's what's happening in the workplace, being challenged because they're like, well, we don't have to respect DEI or you anymore. But yes, you do. You still have to respect people in the workplace and period. Okay. So what do you want our viewers to know as we wrap up?
I think that's more than enough because I could keep going. I could sit
I
here and
know.
we could talk and talk. So,
I know. Well, we got Rework Work,
yes.
The Well,
Read the book.
Unbiased.
Yes, Unbiased, Addressing Unconscious Bias at Work. It is a quick read. It's a short read.
And it's on Audible.
It is on Audible, yes. It will help you. I just had a glowing recommendation from a woman that actually brought me to tears. She said it changed her whole way of leading and made her a much better leader. And she's been following me for years, and she loves my book. And it has really the guide that she uses as a leader in the workplace. And I thought, oh, that's nice to hear.
It is a great book. I used it when I worked in corporate America as a guide, and it became one of our go-tos for, thousands of employees. So, okay. Well, thank you so much, Stacey, for the work that you're doing in this space, for creating safe spaces, making sure that we all understand DEI and that we have a place to do this work. Well, anyhow, as we are back together again, putting the world in the spin. Thank you all for joining the Ask Mrs. HR podcast today. This is what we're about. The Ask Mrs. HR podcast is creating safe spaces for you so you can have the professional courage to show up in either workplaces as an entrepreneur and in this world and be the change that you want to be. Until next time, see you on the Ask Mrs. HR. Make sure you subscribe and like, and see you next time.